Lieutenant William Overstreet tightens his grip on the control yoke. His P-51 Mustang screams toward the German capital, 600 miles deep into enemy territory. 3 years ago, this mission was suicide. American fighters ran out of fuel over France. Bombers died by the hundreds. But Overstreet isn't turning back. His fuel gauge shows 500 miles remaining. Enough to chase Luftwaffe fighters all the way to the deck. Enough to escort the bombers home. One civilian engineer made this possible. A man who saw what everyone else missed and turned a mediocre fighter into the weapon that would win the air war over Europe. September 1943. 8th Air Force Headquarters, High Wycombe, England. General Ira Eaker stares at the casualty reports, and the numbers are devastating. In the past 3 months, American bomber crews have flown deep into Germany, Schweinfurt, Regensburg, Bremen, and the losses are catastrophic. On October 14th alone, the raid on Schweinfurt cost 60 B-17s shot down. 600 men dead, captured, or missing in a single afternoon. The mission planners call it Black Thursday. The crews call it a slaughter. The problem is brutally simple. Range. American fighters, P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings, are tough, powerful machines. But their fuel tanks run dry over France. They turn back, waggling their wings in silent apology, leaving the bombers to face the Luftwaffe alone. And the Germans are waiting. Messerschmitt Bf-109s dive from above. 20mm cannons tearing through bomber formations like wolves through a herd. Focke-Wulf 190s attack head-on, machine guns ripping into cockpits and engines. The B-17's flying fortresses are supposed to defend themselves with interlocking fields of 50 caliber fire. But theory and reality are two different things at 25,000 feet, where the temperature is 40 below zero and gunners' hands freeze to their weapons. The math is simple and terrible. If the 8th Air Force keeps flying deep penetration missions without long-range fighter escort, they'll run out of crews before they run out of targets. Back in Washington, the Joint Chiefs are considering the unthinkable, abandoning daylight precision bombing entirely. Switching to the British approach, night area bombing, dropping incendiaries on cities, accepting massive civilian casualties as the price of reaching Germany's industrial heartland. But there's another option, a fighter that almost nobody believes in, a design that was rushed into production in 1940 as a favor to the British, built in 120 days by a company that had never manufactured a fighter before. A plane powered by an Allison engine that gasps for air above 15,000 feet, making it nearly worthless in high-altitude combat. The North American P-51 Mustang. On paper, it's mediocre. In combat reports from North Africa and the Pacific, it's described as adequate for ground attack and disappointing in air-to-air engagements. But in a small engineering office at North American Aviation's plant in Inglewood, California, Edgar Schmued sees something no one else does. He sees potential. 1940. North American Aviation, Inglewood, California. Edgar Schmued doesn't look like a revolutionary. At 42 years old, he's balding, bespectacled, with the careful demeanor of a man who thinks in equations and airflow diagrams. He speaks English with a faint German accent. He was born in Bavaria, emigrated as a young man, worked his way up through the American aviation industry when most engineers still learned by trial and error. Schmued learned differently. At Fokker in Germany, then at General Aviation, he absorbed the cutting edge of aerodynamic theory. He understands something fundamental. Air doesn't care about tradition. It responds to shape, to contour, to the mathematical elegance of a properly designed wing. When the British Purchasing Commission approaches North American Aviation in 1940 with an urgent request, we need fighters, thousands of them, and we need them fast. Company President James Dutch Kindleberger makes a bold counteroffer. "We won't build you Curtiss P-40s," he says. "We'll design you something better, from scratch." In 120 days, the British think he's insane. Kindleberger turns to Schmued. What follows is a masterclass in focused engineering. Schmued and his team, Raymond Rice, Ed Horkey, Larry Waite, work around the clock, translating theory into blueprints, blueprints into prototype. They study every fighter in service, the Messerschmitt's climbing ability, the Spitfire's wing design, the Curtiss's rugged simplicity. But Schmued makes critical decisions that set the Mustang apart. The wing, laminar flow airfoil, a radical design that reduces drag by maintaining smooth airflow over the surface. It's theoretically perfect and nearly impossible to manufacture with wartime tolerances. Schmued makes it work. The radiator, instead of hanging it beneath the fuselage like dead weight, he positions it behind the cockpit, ducting air through in a way that actually generates thrust through the Meredith effect, turning a liability into an advantage. The fuselage, sleek, minimal frontal area, every rivet flush-mounted. While other fighters look like they were assembled from spare parts, the Mustang looks like it was carved from a single piece of metal. On October 26, 1940, exactly 102 days after the British contract is signed, test pilot Vance Breeze lifts the prototype off the runway at Mines Field. The NA-73X handles like a dream. But there's a problem. The Allison V1710 engine, the only American-made inline engine available in quantity, produces 1,150 horsepower at sea level. Impressive, but at altitude, where the air thins and fighters actually fight, it chokes. Above 15,000 feet, the Mustang's performance falls off a cliff. The British take delivery anyway. They're desperate. The Battle of Britain is raging. They need every fighter they can get, even if it's only good for low-altitude missions, reconnaissance, ground attack, coastal patrol. The P-51 enters service. And it's fine, not great, not terrible, fine. American test pilots file lukewarm reports. The Army Air Forces orders a modest number for evaluation. In the brutal arithmetic of wartime procurement, the Mustang is a footnote, outclassed by the P-47 Thunderbolt at high altitude, lacking the twin-engine redundancy of the P-38 Lightning. By late 1942, the Mustang program seems destined for mediocrity. But 5,000 miles away, in a small office at Rolls-Royce's facility in Hucknall, England, a test pilot named Ronnie Harker climbs out of a P-51 cockpit and makes a phone call that will change everything. "I've just flown the Yank fighter," he tells his supervisor. "Lovely aircraft. Pity about the engine." Harker pauses. "We should try putting a Merlin in it." April 1942. Rolls-Royce Flight Test Facility, Hucknall, England. The Rolls-Royce Merlin isn't just an engine. It's a legend wrapped in machined aluminum and high-octane fuel. 12 cylinders arranged in a V, supercharged, producing 1,500 horsepower at 20,000 feet, altitude where American engines gasp and wheeze. This is the engine that powers the Spitfire, the Hurricane, the aircraft that clawed back the skies over Britain in 1940 when invasion seemed inevitable. British engineers have long suspected that American airframe design is ahead of American engine technology. The Mustang's sleek fuselage, that revolutionary laminar flow wing, they're being wasted on an engine that can't exploit them. Ronnie Harker's suggestion lands on the desk of Rolls-Royce engineer Ronald W. Harker, who brings it to test manager Jimmy O'Rale. Within weeks, the idea reaches the highest levels of the Air Ministry. The British don't ask permission. They simply do it. In a workshop in Hucknall, technicians pull the Allison V1710 from a Mustang MKI and bolt in a Merlin 61. The installation is crude, makeshift mounts, temporary fuel lines, rushed modifications. On October 13, 1942, test pilot Jeffrey Quill, the same man who refined the Spitfire, takes the hybrid aircraft up for its first flight. He climbs through 10,000 feet. The Merlin sings. 15,000 feet. Still accelerating. 20,000 feet. The altimeter keeps unwinding. Quill levels off at 22,000 feet and opens the throttle. The Mustang explodes forward. The speed builds 380 miles per hour, 390, 400, faster than any Spitfire he's ever flown at this altitude. The controls are crisp, responsive. The aircraft feels alive in a way the Allison-powered version never did. When Quill lands, he's grinning. "This," he says, "changes everything." The test data backs him up. The Merlin Mustang is 50 miles per hour faster at altitude than the original. It climbs like a rocket. And because the Merlin is more fuel efficient at high altitude than the Allison, the range actually increases. Word reaches North American Aviation in California. Edgar Schmued reads the British test reports with the quiet satisfaction of a man who knew he was right all along. His airframe was never the problem. It was always the engine. But there's a complication. Rolls-Royce can't build enough Merlins to supply both British Spitfires and American Mustangs. The RAF has priority. The engine is British technology, manufactured in Britain, and Britain is still fighting for survival. Schmued needs an American solution. He finds it in an unlikely place, Packard Motor Company, the luxury automobile manufacturer in Detroit. Packard has been building Merlins under license since 1940, producing engines for British aircraft. The Packard V1650, the American-built Merlin, is mechanically identical, but scaled for mass production. In December 1942, Schmued's team begins redesigning the Mustang around the Packard Merlin. This isn't just an engine swap. The Merlin is heavier, positioned differently, requires new engine mounts, new cooling systems, new propeller specifications. The Merlin supercharger needs different intake ducting. The exhaust stacks have to be repositioned. Schmued approaches each problem with methodical precision. He redesigns the engine cooling system, enlarging the radiator intake and optimizing the duct shape to handle the Merlin's greater heat output, while still extracting thrust from the exhaust air. He strengthens the engine mounts and firewall to handle the additional torque and vibration. He repositions the carburetor intake to prevent icing at high altitude, a problem that's killed pilots in other aircraft. Every change is calculated, tested, refined. By early 1943, the first production P-51 Mustangs roll off the assembly line in Inglewood. Sleek silver aircraft with the angular nose of the Merlin installation, 4 50 caliber machine guns in each wing, and a range that makes transport pilots jealous. But Schmued isn't finished. He knows that range, not speed, not firepower, is the real breakthrough. The 8th Air Force needs fighters that can go deep, all the way to Berlin, all the way to the targets where B-17s are dying by the hundreds. So he does something audacious. He adds fuel tanks, not just in the wings, not just in the fuselage. Schmued designs drop tanks, external fuel tanks that can be jettisoned in combat, that hang beneath the wings. 85 gallons per tank, throwaway range. With internal tanks full and 2 drop tanks attached, the P-51 can fly over 2,000 miles. Round trip to Berlin and back. Enough range to escort the bombers all the way to the target, fight off German interceptors, and still make it home. In September 1943, the first P-51 Mustangs arrive in England. The bomber crews don't know it yet, but everything is about to change. December 1st, 1943, RAF Bottisham, Cambridgeshire, England. The 354th Fighter Group taxis onto the frozen airfield in their brand new P-51 Mustangs, and the ground crews stare. These aren't the stubby, brutal thunderbolts they're used to seeing. The Mustang sits low, sleek, almost delicate looking. The Merlin engine's exhaust stacks curve along the fuselage like talons. The canopy bubble rises smoothly from the spine. It looks fast just sitting on the tarmac. Colonel Kenneth Martin, commanding officer of the 354th, gathers his pilots in the operations hut. Maps of Germany cover the walls, target lists, flak concentrations, known Luftwaffe airfields. Every red mark represents a place where American bombers have bled. "Gentlemen," Martin says, "we're going to Berlin." The room goes quiet. Berlin is 600 miles into Germany. No American fighter has ever reached it. The math has always been impossible, until now. On December 5th, the 354th flies its first long-range escort mission. Target: Amiens, France. It's a shakedown run, testing the new aircraft under combat conditions. The Mustangs rendezvous with a formation of B-17s at 25,000 feet, and for the first time, bomber crews see American fighters staying with them past the French coast. The Luftwaffe notices too. Messerschmitt pilots diving on the bomber formation find themselves intercepted by Silver fighters that match them turn for turn, then outrun them in level flight. The P-51's top speed at altitude, 440 miles per hour, is faster than anything Germany has in operational service. Lieutenant Charles Gum, flying his first combat mission in a Mustang. It's a Bf-109 in his gun sight over the target. 4 50 caliber machine guns hammer. The Messerschmitt trails smoke, rolls inverted, and spins into the clouds. Gum's wingman gets another. The 354th returns to base with 2 kills and 0 losses. It's a small engagement, a skirmish. But word spreads fast through the 8th Air Force. The new fighter works. By January 1944, more P-51 groups arrive in England. The 357th, the 363rd, fresh pilots, eager to prove themselves. Veterans transferring from Thunderbolts and Lightnings, learning to trust the Mustang's lighter controls and longer legs. But it's not just about the aircraft. The tactics have to change too. Before the Mustang, American fighter doctrine was defensive. Stick close to the bombers, fly formation, fend off attacks. The fighters were sheepdogs, trying to protect a slow-moving flock from wolves. With the P-51's range and speed, a new possibility emerges: offensive fighter sweeps. The man who champions this shift is Lieutenant General Jimmy Doolittle, who takes command of the 8th Air Force in January 1944. Doolittle, the same man who led the famous raid on Tokyo in 1942, understands aggression. He looks at the Mustang's capabilities and sees an opportunity to flip the script. Stop flying formation around the bombers, he tells his fighter commanders. Go find the Luftwaffe, hunt them down, shoot them out of the sky before they even reach our bombers. It's a radical change. Some bomber generals protest. They want their fighters visible, close enough to reassure the crews. Doolittle overrules them. On January 11th, 1944, he issues the order. P-51 pilots are authorized to break formation, pursue enemy fighters aggressively, and strafe German airfields. The Mustangs become hunters. What follows is a slaughter. P-51s don't just escort bombers. They range ahead, sweep the skies, and pounce on Luftwaffe formations as they're taking off or forming up. German pilots, used to having time to climb to altitude and organize their attacks, suddenly find American fighters over their own airfields. On February 20th, 1944, the 8th Air Force launches Operation Argument, later known as Big Week, a 6-day coordinated assault on German aircraft production facilities. Over 3,000 bomber sorties. Every factory producing Messerschmitts, Focke-Wulfs, and Heinkels is a target. The Luftwaffe throws everything into the air to stop them, and the Mustangs are waiting. Over Leipzig, Brunswick, Regensburg, the sky fills with contrails and tracers. P-51 pilots dive through German formations, splitting them apart. Messerschmitt Bf-109s, legendary fighters that once dominated the skies over Europe, find themselves outclimbed, outrun, and outgunned. Captain Doane Gentile of the 4th Fighter Group becomes an ace in a single week, shooting down 5 German aircraft. Major James Howard of the 354th single-handedly attacks a formation of 30 German fighters, threatening a crippled B-17, and lives to tell about it. He'll receive the Medal of Honor. By the end of Big Week, the 8th Air Force has destroyed over 600 German aircraft in the air and on the ground. But the cost to the Luftwaffe is more than just numbers. They're losing experienced pilots, veterans who survived the Battle of Britain, the Eastern Front, years of combat, men who can't be replaced. Germany's training pipeline is collapsing under Allied bombing. New pilots arrive at frontline squadrons with barely 100 hours of flight time and face American pilots with 300, 400, 500 hours of training, flying superior aircraft. The balance is shifting, and on March 4th, 1944, it shifts completely. March 4th, 1944, 8:15 hours. RAF Debden, Essex, England. The briefing room is packed. Pilots from the 4th Fighter Group, the legendary Eagle Squadron veterans who flew Spitfires before transferring to American service, lean over the mission map, following the red line with their eyes. It stretches across the English Channel, over Belgium, across Germany, and terminates in a circle drawn around a single word: Berlin. Major James Clark, the operations officer, taps the map with his pointer. Today, gentlemen, we're going all the way. No American fighter has ever flown to Berlin. The distance is 1,100 miles round trip. Impossible for Thunderbolts. Suicidal for Lightnings with their temperamental engines. But for the P-51 Mustang, with internal tanks full and 2 108-gallon drop tanks slung beneath the wings, it's achievable. Just barely. Colonel Doane Blakesley, commanding officer of the 4th, stands up. At 26 years old, he's already one of the most experienced fighter pilots in the European theater. A former RAF Eagle Squadron pilot with kills stretching back to 1941. We've got 174 bombers hitting ball-bearing factories in Berlin, Blakesley says. The Luftwaffe will put up everything they have to stop them. Our job is simple. Keep the bombers alive. He pauses. And if you see a German fighter, kill it. At 10 o'clock hours, 68 P-51 Mustangs from the 4th Fighter Group lift off into the cold morning sky. They climb through scattered clouds, forming up at 25,000 feet, then turn east. The flight across the North Sea is routine. England disappears behind them. The Dutch coast appears ahead, brown flatlands and frozen canals. Anti-aircraft fire rises in black puffs, tracking their altitude but falling short. Over Belgium, Captain Doane Gentile checks his fuel gauges. The drop tanks are feeding smoothly. Internal tanks still 3/4 full. The math looks good. The bomber formation appears ahead, a massive gaggle of B-17s stacked in combat boxes, contrails streaming behind them like white ribbons against the blue. The Mustangs slide into position, some above, some on the flanks, others weaving behind in a defensive pattern called the Thatch Weave. The bombers' crews wave from their waist gun positions. For the first time in 2 years of daylight bombing, they're not alone over Germany. At 13:15 hours, the formation crosses into German airspace. That's when the Luftwaffe arrives. They come from above, Messerschmitt Bf 109s and Focke-Wulf 190s, diving out of the sun in coordinated attacks. German ground controllers have vectored every available fighter toward the Berlin defense zone. Over 150 interceptors are airborne. Bandits 12 o'clock high. Someone shouts over the radio. Blakesley's voice cuts through the chatter. Drop tanks. Now. 68 Mustangs jettison their external tanks simultaneously. The aluminum cylinders tumble away, glinting in the sunlight, as the fighters suddenly become 400 pounds lighter and faster. The dogfight begins. Captain Gentile spots a Bf-109 diving toward a bomber. He banks hard, cutting inside the German's turn, leading the shot just slightly. His .50 calibers roar. Tracers converge. The Messerschmitt's canopy shatters. The aircraft rolls lazily, trailing smoke, and falls away. 1. Lieutenant Nicholas Megora chases a Focke-Wulf through a twisting dive. The German pilot is good. He scissors left and right, trying to shake pursuit. But the Mustang stays glued to his tail. Megora fires a long burst. Hits sparkle along the fuselage. The FW-190 explodes in a ball of orange fire. Above the bomber stream, Lieutenant Howard Deacon Hively finds himself in a turning fight with 3 Bf-109s. They're trying to bracket him one high, two low, closing the trap. Hively does something the German pilots don't expect. He pulls the Mustang into a near vertical climb. The P-51's Merlin engine screams. The Messerschmitts, already at high altitude, where their engines are losing power, can't follow. They stall out, noses dropping. Hively rolls over the top, dives back down, and catches one of them from above. A 2-second burst. The Bf-109 disintegrates. Over the radio, voices overlap. Got one. 3 more coming in at 9 o'clock. Stay with your wingman. Bomber's smoking, but he's still flying. Blakesley's calm voice cuts through. Keep them off the bombers. That's the mission. The fight rages for 20 minutes. German fighters press attacks with desperate aggression. They know what's at stake. If American bombers can strike Berlin with impunity, no target in Germany is safe. But the Mustangs are everywhere. Every time a German formation lines up on the bombers, P-51s slash through, scattering the attack. The Luftwaffe pilots, accustomed to having free rein once British Spitfires turned back, are fighting defensively for the first time over their own capital. At 13:35 hours, the bombers reach Berlin. Anti-aircraft fire fills the sky. Thousands of 88mm flak guns firing in coordinated patterns. Black smoke bursts bloom at precise altitudes. Shrapnel tears through aircraft skin. One B-17 takes a direct hit and simply comes apart, breaking into 3 pieces that tumble toward the city below. But the formation holds together. Bomb bay doors open. Thousands of 500-pound bombs tumble out, falling toward the Daimler-Benz factory complex, the Ertner ball-bearing plant, the rail marshalling yards. The Mustangs orbit above, hunting. Then, mission complete, the bombers turn west. The long flight home begins. German fighters follow, harassing the formation, trying to pick off stragglers. But they're low on fuel and ammunition. One by one, they peel away, heading back to their bases. The P-51s stay, all the way to the Dutch coast, all the way across the North Sea. At 16:45 hours, the first Mustangs touch down at Debden. Ground crews rush to refuel and rearm the aircraft. Pilots climb out of cockpits, exhausted, exhilarated. 5 Mustangs are missing. 5 pilots won't come home. But the bombers, 174 B-17s, return with only moderate losses. 11 aircraft lost to flak and fighters. Tragic, but not catastrophic. Before the Mustang, that same mission would have cost 50 bombers, or would never have been attempted at all. In his after-action report, Colonel Blakesley writes, "Berlin can now be reached. The Luftwaffe can be engaged over their own capital. The air war has fundamentally changed." He's right, but it's not just about Berlin.